Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel in another movie review. Today we will be discussing Brick, the German version of a movie, or just a German movie on Netflix. There was either another TV show or another movie that popped up if you just type it in Brick. So as you can see from the cover art or from the poster, this is Brick, the German movie currently on Netflix. And so I will read you the overview as provided by IMDb, give you my just general impressions, just whatever I thought leaving that the film left me with. After that, just general impressions, the most poignant things that stuck out. I will give you a letter grade A to F, A being well done, B being entertaining, C being whatever, D being off-putting, and F being I turned off the movie but still wanted to talk about it. Once I give the letter grade, if you want to watch the film, you're going to want to shut off the video because there will be spoiler alerts. We'll be discussing the plot synopsis, just overall major developments that I can remember, as well as the major character developments, how their relationships progress and evolve, and the overall cinematography, lighting, setting, soundtrack, anything that stands out. And so, Brick, we have a couple whose apartment building is suddenly surrounded by a mysterious brick wall, must work with their neighbors to find a way out. It's got a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb for 27,000 ratings. And so I did not see any reviews on Google, but just scrolling through Netflix was something I clicked on. So, biggest thing that stood out for me is it is a dubbed movie, or at least that's how I watched it. Personally, it's not really off-putting. I think the overall completeness of translation, meaning you still get like the lip movements don't line up to the sounds, but you know, a quip from translation I've heard before, and I think some people kind of harbor as real or something. At least in my opinion, is that you'll lose the nuance if you don't watch something in the native. It's filmed in German, and watch it with American dubs, meaning no subtitles, literally translated words put onto the lip movements. And so, I don't think you lose like emotional nuance or character development with dubbing. I just don't. Words have meaning. Somebody at Netflix that's a native German speaker listens to the script, translates it to English, and I think, you know, the verbiage they translate over, the biggest thing you lose is literally the synchronicity of the mouth movements to the actual sounds. The actual logic, what is being said, I don't think you lose anything. My opinion, but regardless, that is how I watched this movie. And so that's the biggest thing that stood out. If you've not seen it, or if you don't like dubbed movies, this is definitely a dubbed one. Or if you speak German, then it is in your native tongue. But regardless, the overall plot to me was just uninspired. It was rather lackluster. I'm not a stickler. It doesn't have to be realistic. It doesn't have to be super novel. It just has to be entertaining. I'm sitting down for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Hey, can you keep my attention? Hey, can you make me think a little bit? Again, it doesn't have to be a deep thought, just something new. Just looking for some entertainment. And so the overall continuity of the plot was just not inspiring. It wasn't super novel. It wasn't super off-putting. It wasn't like the plot was just extremely dull. The character relationships weren't strong in my opinion, and I didn't think it struck a consistent tone. And so, meaning, hey, I have some movie, it's going to be serious throughout, or hey, I'm going to have some movie, we're going to have serious throughout, but some comedic elements. Hey, we're going to have a comedy movie, you know, whatever the genre is. Right? It doesn't need to have to stay to one kind of theme or one type of like serious, not serious, funny. But just the overall, to me, this had no direction and it didn't work. You can have stuff without direction that works, but this one just didn't. So overall, I'm going to give this a C-, just the lower end of whatever. No real off-putting elements, but there was a certain part of the movie where it's like, okay, this is definitely not striking the viewer as a super serious presentation. So if you've not seen the movie and would like to, it is currently hosted on Netflix. We'll be going through the plot now. So you open up. You have a male and female lead. The movie was shot, so it was actually shot in the Czech Republic, but the whole kind of environment is in an apartment building. And so you have a male-female lead. The stars are Matthias Schweighöfer and Ruby O'Fee, and Frederick Lau is also listed. And so, but male-female kind of lead. They're a younger couple, I would say. Again, got to be right around my age. I would say early 30s, maybe mid-30s. But the man, I don't think you get his name. It's not one of those like things that are certainly I don't remember, but not poignant to the plot development. And so he is a game developer, some minor developments of he's on there programming with his computer buddies or with his work or with something, but he's kind of neglecting his relationship. He goes out to eat with his girlfriend. You have some flashback scenes where they've lost a child. She kind of wants to spontaneously go to Paris. A little or foreboding or premonition of, hey, they get stuck into their apartment, so they kind of have a way out, but the director, the writer is trying to establish, hey, we have a rocky relationship, they've lost a child, the man is kind of focusing on his work, the woman's not very happy, and so then we're back at the apartment, we have a little kind of fighting tussle, and then the next morning wakes up, and this is all like within the first minute or two, and then bam, she says, hey, I'm leaving you, and she goes to open the door, and then that's when you see this kind of like digitized, again, the way it's presented is there's this brick wall. It's not like a standard brick. It kind of has some sort of like nanotech to it. It's got some sort of like futuristic presentation to the viewer. So as a feeling, it's like, like, hey, what's going on? You kind of get, again, it's not like, you kind of get this futuristic vibe. Again, it's the picture right on the cover art. And so they're kind of immediately trying to figure out what's going on. They can't really figure it out. They notice it has some magnetic properties. They're holding up their phones and different little metal pieces, magnet stuff, and it attracts to different parts of the wall. And it's irregular, kind of has like squares and rectangles kind of interspersed, displayed right on the facade, right on the face. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. They don't really come to many good conclusions. They see the magnetic properties, so they start putting like little, what ends up being shrapnel. So it kind of gets like held there, like the magnetic field holds these metal objects and then like spits it out. And so initially, again, as a viewer, I thought I had reviewed a movie called The Belko Experiment. I'm not going to get into that plot a bunch, but it has another similar, hey, we're trapped in, and the thing that's trapping us in is really resistant to heat. You can't drill through it. The same exact type of, hey, these characters are trapped in, and they can't, this futuristic kind of wall, this brick, is impenetrable. And so they kind of pick up on that very quickly, and then the magnetic components of the wall, they like throw a bunch of like just little shrapnel pieces, and it all like spits it back out. It doesn't really like absorb it, it just kind of like holds it there in the magnetic field, and then repulses it back out. The man shields the female, and he gets a bunch of these metal pieces in his back. So she kind of wounds him up, or like takes the pieces out, bandages him up, and they're like, hey, okay, what are we gonna do? So they try to escape, and what they do is drill a hole in like the adjoining wall. So they drill a hole in there, you get introduced to two more characters, kind of like a drug couple. They're in Germany, and this is what I was saying, kind of alluding to in the intro, was the male character in the drug couple, he's kind of like, you can't really tell if he's comedic relief or just his characterization is just this kind of like sloppy, silly kind of character. And so the overall tone consistency, up until this point, it's like serious, the relationships aren't super convincing, but it's trying to be like a serious tone. And so you're not sure if this character is like a comedic relief material or if the overall tone is just going to be disjointed throughout. But regardless, we drill through the wall, we meet this other couple, they're kind of crazy, he attacks the main guy, we'll just call the main guy, and then we'll call this other guy Bill. I don't know the characters' names, not relevant throughout the movie. We do meet two other guys with names, but Guy, that's our main character, gets in this tussle with Bill, and they kind of settle down really quickly, and they're like, hey, we're stuck as well. And so you get a little bit of background. Bill's, again, kind of like a wacko, kind of like, a comedic relief kind of presentation at this point in the movie. But regardless, they say, hey, we're locked in too, but if we dig down below our landlord, there's a tunnel from the old bomb shelters from World War II. We can get out and escape. And so they start drilling down, and the landlord's this old guy, or I am not sure if it's the landlord or not. Two more characters appear. An old guy and his granddaughter. He's on a ventilator. He's got a little pistol. So that's the first firearm introduced. They have like a big axe as well. But the weaponry doesn't really matter that much. but they are trying to preserve the axe. They like beat the wall a couple times. And they're like, hey, we need that to like get throughout, because they can move internally throughout the apartment through these interior walls. And so they find this old guy and his granddaughter, and then they're like, hey, and I don't think they're the landlords, but they're like, the landlord's next door. And so those three groups, Guy and his girlfriend slash wife, Bill and his girlfriend slash wife, and then the grandfather and the younger girl, and then the two, what is presented as the landlords is your trite characterization of like Russian, I don't want to say gangsters or mobsters, but just like Russian ambiguity, where it's like they're giving off of like this, maybe like a criminal element. Again, their characterizations. What ends up happening is one of the Russian guys, they immediately go into the apartment, which I'm pretty sure is the landlord. Or yes, it is the landlord. One of them's name's Anton, and I don't know the other one. But like, those are the only like character names I think you get explicitly said, or at least that I remember. But one of the guys, the landlord one, his hands are cut off. He's dead, and people are like, what's going on? The other guy, the other Russian guy, we'll just call him Russian. He's like, he was just dead or something. You don't get a clear exposition or description. At least not that I remember. But regardless, they're starting to go back. Okay, hey, we're stuck in. And then you get some sort of this plot development. Anton, the one that's dead, had worked for this nanotech company, and the Russian, the other one, is like saying, hey, you can't go outside. There's contamination. And so this is a kind of another plot development which was similar to, we reviewed Cloverview or Cloverfield, as well as like one that was like seemingly to be like a sequel to that, like Cloverview Street or 14 something Cloverview Street, where again, as the viewer, you're not sure if there's actual contamination outside of this wall or not. And so again, just another element of the plot development. And so Russian, again, the not dead one of these two, I'm trying to keep the characters' names. You don't get a bunch of character names. But the guy with his hands cut off is dead. He's the landlord. And then this other guy's like, hey, there's contamination outside. You can't go outside. And so they kind of go through the different apartments, and they go look at some security cameras. And then the chick realizes, the patterns of these bricks are like a QR code. And so she notices like there's light pulsing. She holds up her phone, kind of like pulses. And what she realizes is there's a sequence, and if you press it in the right way, it kind of opens the door. And so at the same time, they review some camera footage. During this period, the old guy dies. They're going up to one of the walls, and another one of these shrapnel things. The crazy drug dude neighbor, he takes the gun that the old guy has, shoots at the wall. The bullets again collect, collect and then like spit back out. And kills the old guy. And so then he's dead. When they're figuring out this light pulsing thing, they open up, like the door kind of like dissolves, and it kind of like becomes like a gel or like a plasma. And so then the drug chick, she's kind of going to like go into the thing, and it like pulls on her finger, and she's able to pull her hand out, and then she like puts her whole arm in and is unable to get her arm out. And so then the wall kind of like solidifies back into solid material, and it just like cuts her in half. It's not gory, but it's not a super serious presentation either. So that was what I was saying previously. It was like, okay, this is definitely not like a serious presentation, at least not to the viewer. Even if the director or the writer's trying to be serious, it's like, okay, this is not a serious movie. And again, that's not actually off-putting to me. It's just the overall tone consistency. I'm not sure, is this a serious movie with comedic elements, or is it just all over the place? I thought it was just all over the place. But regardless, she's dead. Her husband, boyfriend, I want to say he dies too. I kind of forget what happens to him. But the main chick, Guy, our main character, his wife, girlfriend, sees kind of like the security camera and sees that Russian had killed Anton. Again, I forget which one I called which, but the guy with his hands cut off, the landlord that they just immediately see is dead, and the other guy, they're not sure what he's saying. They see him kill the guy that's already dead. And so that Russian guy, the one that was alive and killed his roommate, he kills the younger girl. Again, not a graphic scene I don't even think they really show it, but she is dead as well. And then They kind of have a tussle with him. They shoot him a couple times. He is able still to be able to get up and fight, which isn't super realistic. And again, at this point, to me, we're just all over the place. And so kind of towards the end of the movie, and then we get, he dies again somehow, but so then we're just left with the guy and his girlfriend slash wife, the two main characters you're initially introduced with. And so they figure out from the security camera, they can see how many light pulses, which order to press the buttons on the QR code when they like scan the wall. And so then the wall opens and they're able to leave. And so then they get outside and then they just see this proliferation of this brick material had gone everywhere. So before the Russian guy had died, and when they're talking about the landlord, what he did, he was saying it's like, it's some sort of protective shielding for a chemical attack, biochemical warfare, something to that effect. And it had just got like triggered wrong. So you do get some resolution where it's like the overall plot development, the characterizations were super weak and all over the place. But I was still trying to feel like, where's this going overall? What is this wall? What is the brick? And so the overall plot wasn't like, to me, that element was like, okay, I mean, that's like something. I mean, this is a genre that I like and enjoy. But overall, again, it was just bricks everywhere. And it seemed to be like a malfunction or a false triggering of just the security apparatus that had been installed everywhere, kind of like unbeknownst to the people. I think it's kind of like the big overall plot resolution, because there's just like brick everywhere. There's some like helicopters flying for like rescue and some like speaker announcements going on. And so that is the resolution of the movie. Overall, again, C-, lower end of just whatever. The overall, the characters development was just all over the place. And so that is what I have for Brick, the German movie, hosted on Netflix. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.